My name is Amos Fletcher, and I just turned 28 yesterday. I was scrolling through Facebook during my lunch break when I saw it. Photos of a surprise party my family threw. For my sister Miranda, on my birthday. The caption read, "The only one who deserves celebrating." I commented, "Nice cake." Mom replied, "At least someone's worth baking for." I smiled, typed back, "Enjoy it, while you can." That night, I made one transfer, sent 2 emails. 12 days later, everything changed. Before I dive into my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. I grew up in a middle-class suburb outside Boston. Nice neighborhood, decent schools, and parents who never seemed to notice I existed. Robert and Catherine Fletcher, dad and mom, had eyes for only one person, my sister Miranda. She's 2 years younger than me, and from the moment she was born, I might as well have been a piece of furniture. Our house in Lexington wasn't huge, but it was comfortable. 4 bedrooms, a finished basement, a backyard with a deck my dad built himself. We weren't rich, but we never struggled. Dad worked as a manager at a local manufacturing company, and Mom taught 3rd grade at the elementary school. On paper, we were the perfect American family. In reality, I was the forgotten son. The pattern started early. When I was 6 and Miranda was 4, I won first place in the school science fair. I built a volcano that actually erupted with this red foam that spread across the table. My teacher called it exceptional and suggested my parents encourage my interest in science. They missed the whole thing because Miranda had a cold. Not the flu, not pneumonia, a cold. When I got home with my blue ribbon, Mom patted my head absently and said, "That's nice, honey. Miranda needs more tissues." By the time I was 10, I'd learned not to expect much for my birthday. That year, my actual birthday fell on a Saturday, perfect for a celebration, right? Instead, my parents drove 2 hours to see Miranda perform in a dance recital. They left me with Mrs. Kapowski next door, who gave me a cupcake with a candle, and looked at me with such pity I still remember the way her eyes crinkled at the corners. When my parents returned that night, gushing about how Miranda was clearly the star of the show, they handed me an unwrapped action figure they'd clearly grabbed at a gas station. It still had the price tag on it, $4.99. High school was more of the same. I graduated 3rd in my class, with a full scholarship to MIT. The ceremony was on a Thursday. Miranda had an art show opening that same evening, her first public display of what my parents called her extraordinary talent. They came to my graduation, sat through the first half hour, then left before I even crossed the stage. I saw them slipping out, my mom checking her watch. I have a photo of myself after the ceremony, holding my diploma, standing alone while other kids were surrounded by proud families. My acceptance to MIT barely registered with them. When the letter arrived, I was so excited I could barely contain myself. I'd worked for this my entire academic career. When I showed my dad, he glanced at it and said, "That's going to be expensive." Miranda was applying to art school that year, and they were already talking about how they'd help fund her creative journey. Despite the lack of emotional support, I thrived at MIT. I double majored in computer science and business management, graduated with honors, and immediately landed a job at a cybersecurity startup. Within 3 years, I had started my own data security company, SecureStack Solutions. We developed encryption software for financial institutions, and by 26, I was worth several $1,000,000. Not that my family was impressed. "So you do computer stuff," my dad said when I tried to explain my company's latest contract with a major bank. "Good thing somebody can make money with those video games." He'd never bothered to understand what I actually did. Meanwhile, Miranda graduated from art school and became what she called a multi-platform creative and what the rest of us would call an unsuccessful influencer. She rented an expensive loft in Boston's South End to use as a studio space and posted pictures of half-finished canvases on Instagram. Occasionally, she sold a painting for a few $100s, but mostly she just burned through money. Money that came from me. 3 years ago, When she was sobbing about potentially being evicted from her luxury apartment, I stepped in. I set up an automatic payment for her rent, $2,500 a month, directly to her landlord company, Beacon Hill Properties. She didn't know it came from me. I told her I'd talked to some connections who ran a grant program for emerging artists. She believed it, never questioned it, and never once thanked the mysterious benefactors who kept a roof over her head. On top of that, she regularly needed small loans to cover her expenses. $3,000 for a new professional camera, $2,000 for a workshop in New York, $1,500 for supplies. She never paid any of it back, and I never expected her to. She was my sister, and despite everything, I loved her. My parents weren't any better with money. When Dad wanted to start a small side business selling custom furniture, he needed a loan for equipment. His credit wasn't great, so I co-signed for $150,000. I also got them added to one of my premium credit cards for emergencies, which somehow included new landscaping for their yard and a kitchen renovation. The monthly payments of $1,200 came from my account. Last year, I paid $15,000 for the entire family to go to Hawaii. Mom had always wanted to go, and their 35th anniversary seemed like the perfect occasion. I booked everything: flights, luxury resort, activities. I couldn't join them because of work commitments, but I wanted them to enjoy themselves. When they returned, tanned and refreshed, Mom posted 63 photos on Facebook with the caption, "Best anniversary ever thanks to Miranda's planning." Miranda had selected which luau they attended. That was her contribution. I'd been in therapy for 5 years by that point, working through my family issues with Dr. Juan Simmons, a patient man who never judged when I admitted to continuing to financially support the people who consistently hurt me. "Why do you do it, Amos?" he asked during one session. I didn't have a good answer. Because they're family? Because I keep hoping they'll notice? Because I can afford it? And what would happen if you stopped? I couldn't imagine it then. It seemed easier to just keep things as they were. The one person who saw me truly saw me was my best friend Jake. We'd been roommates at MIT, and he was now my company's chief operations officer. He witnessed the unanswered phone calls on my birthday, the holiday gatherings where I was an afterthought, the constant disappointment. "Your family sucks," he told me bluntly, after one particularly painful Christmas where my parents had given Miranda a car, while I received a generic gift basket of cheap cologne and socks. "They're not that bad," I said automatically. "Dude, you're worth millions. You pay for their lifestyle, and they treat you like you're nobody. That's the definition of that bad." I shrugged it off. Work became my escape, my identity, my validation. If I couldn't get approval from my family, I'd get it from the business world. I worked 16-hour days, built my company to impressive profitability, and created a life that looked successful from the outside. Inside, I was still that kid sitting in Mrs. Kapowski's kitchen, staring at a single candle and trying not to cry. I woke up on the morning of my 28th birthday to 0 notifications on my phone. No calls, no texts, no emails of the personal variety, just the usual work updates and app alerts. I wasn't surprised, but there's something about birthdays that rekindles that childish hope. Maybe this year would be different. My apartment in downtown Boston offered spectacular views of the harbor, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furnishings, original artwork on the walls. I could afford the best, and I'd built this space as a sanctuary. This morning, though, the spaciousness just felt empty. I followed my solo birthday ritual, special single-origin coffee beans I saved for occasions, a proper breakfast instead of my usual protein bar, a new shirt I'd ordered from my favorite designer. Small indulgences that acknowledged the day, even if no one else would. At 8:17 a.m., my phone rang. "Jake, happy birthday, you old bastard," he said when I answered. "Thanks, man. Got plans tonight? The guys want to take you out. Nothing fancy, just drinks and terrible decisions." "Maybe," I said. Non-committal. "Let me see how work goes. Don't bail." 28 only happens once, and we're celebrating whether you like it or not. After we hung up, I finished getting ready and drove to my office. SecureStack Solutions occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in the financial district. 120 employees, state-of-the-art everything, my name on the door. I'd built something significant here, something that mattered. Nobody at work knew it was my birthday. I never put it in the company calendar. I didn't mention it to my assistant. I didn't want the awkward gathering in the conference room, the grocery store cake, the obligatory cards. If people who were supposed to love me couldn't remember, why force acquaintances to pretend? The morning passed in a blur of meetings and decisions. We were finalizing a major contract with a European banking consortium, and the details required my full attention. By lunchtime, my mind was buzzing with encryption protocols and implementation timelines. I ordered a sandwich to my office and took a quick break to scroll through my phone. That's when I saw the Facebook notification. Catherine Fletcher added 37 photos to the album Miranda's Surprise Party. I froze with my sandwich halfway to my mouth. I clicked on the notification, and there it was. Dozens of photos of a party at my parents' house. Balloons, catered food, a professional-looking cake with "Celebrating Miranda" written in elegant script. Family members I hadn't seen in years, all gathered in the living room, smiling broadly. The timestamp showed the party had been the previous night. My birthday. I scrolled through the photos with increasing disbelief. Mom and Dad beaming beside Miranda as she blew out candles. My cousin Tyler, who never returns my calls, raising a glass in a toast. Aunt Susan, Uncle Bill, even my grandmother who couldn't travel for my college graduation. All there, celebrating my sister, on my birthday. The caption under the album read, "Surprise party for the only one who deserves celebrating. So proud of our amazing daughter and her first gallery acceptance." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My sister had apparently gotten her art into a small gallery showing on my birthday, and my family had thrown her a surprise party. On my birthday, my hands started shaking. My chest tightened. I couldn't seem to get enough air into my lungs. I got up and walked quickly to the private bathroom attached to my office, locking the door behind me. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, successful businessman in a tailored suit, looking like he might throw up or pass out or both. I splashed cold water on my face and took several deep breaths. This shouldn't hurt so much. It was just a party. Just another day my family had forgotten about me. Nothing new. But it was the public nature of it that cut deeper this time. The photos, the comments, the evidence that I didn't matter, displayed for everyone to see. I returned to my desk and stared at the Facebook album for a long time. Other people had commented with congratulations and heart emojis. Friends from high school I hadn't thought about in years. Distant relatives. Miranda's art school crowd. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could ignore it. I could take the high road. I could pretend I hadn't seen it. Instead, I wrote, "Nice cake." That's all. 2 words. Neutral. Impossible to read tone into. Just an acknowledgement that I'd seen their celebration. I returned to work, or tried to. 20 minutes later, my phone pinged with a notification. My mother had replied to my comment, "At least someone's worth baking for." The words hit like a slap. Public, deliberate, cruel, and any possibility that they'd simply forgotten my birthday vanished. This was intentional. They hadn't just overlooked my birthday, they'd actively chosen to celebrate Miranda on my day. I felt eyes on me, and looked up to see my assistant Megan standing in the doorway. From her expression, I knew she'd seen the exchange. Her face showed that unique mix of embarrassment and pity that comes from witnessing someone else's humiliation. "The team from Deutsche Bank is ready in conference room A," she said softly. "I'll be right there," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. As I gathered my materials for the meeting, I noticed the office had gone quiet around me. The normal buzz of conversation and keyboard clicks had died down. I glanced out to the open workspace and caught several employees quickly looking away. They'd seen it too. My family's dismissal of me, laid bare on social media. I straightened my tie, squared my shoulders, and opened Facebook one last time. Under my mother's cruel comment, I wrote, "Enjoy it, while you can." Then I closed the browser, put on my professional face, and walked to the conference room to discuss a $20 million security implementation with people who respected me far more than my own family ever had. I couldn't focus on the Deutsche Bank meeting. Words floated around me. Implementation timeline, security protocols, phased rollout, but I couldn't grab hold of any of them. Jake noticed. He jumped in smoothly whenever I lost my train of thought, covered my distraction with well-placed questions of his own. When the clients finally left, he closed the conference room door and turned to me. "What happened?" "Nothing," I said automatically. "Bullshit. You're white as a ghost, and you just agreed to give them the Huffman protocol for free. That's a $50,000 add-on." I pulled out my phone and showed him the Facebook exchange. He read it, his expression darkening. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "These people are monsters." "I need to go home," I said. He nodded. "Take the day. I'll handle everything here. And Amos? Don't do anything stupid." I wasn't sure what he thought stupid might entail. I just knew I couldn't sit in my office pretending everything was normal. The drive home was a blur. I remember hitting rush-hour traffic on the Massachusetts Turnpike, sitting motionless among hundreds of other cars. I remember the radio playing some upbeat pop song that made me want to scream. I remember pulling over at a rest stop because I couldn't see through the tears. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. 28 years of disappointment crashed over me in waves. The forgotten birthdays, the missed achievements, the constant, relentless preference for Miranda. By the time I reached my apartment building, I'd moved past sadness into something colder and more clarifying. The garage attendant wished me a good evening. The doorman nodded as I crossed the lobby. The elevator carried me to my penthouse in smooth silence. All these strangers showing more acknowledgement of my existence than my family had in years. I stood in my living room, looking at the life I'd built. Modern furniture chosen for both comfort and style. Art I'd collected during business trips around the world. Photos from college, from the company's early days, from hiking trips with Jake. And on the bookshelf, a single-framed family photo from when I was about 12, before I fully understood my place in the Fletcher hierarchy. That photo had always given me a twisted sort of hope. See? We looked normal once. Maybe we could again. I took it down now and studied it. Mom and Dad standing behind Miranda and me, their hands on her shoulders, not touching me at all, my smile strained, hers carefree. It had been right there all along. My phone rang. "Jake, you home?" he asked when I answered. "Yeah. You sound terrible." "Thanks. Look, we're coming over. Me, Chris, Tyler, beer, pizza, maybe some whiskey. No arguments." I started to protest, then stopped. "Okay." While waiting for them to arrive, I poured myself 2 fingers of 18-year-old Macallan and sat at my desk. I opened my laptop and pulled up my financial accounts. It was time to take inventory of exactly how much I was supporting the people who couldn't even acknowledge my birthday. The numbers were stark when laid out all at once. Miranda's rent, $2,500 per month for 36 months, equals $90,000. Loans to Miranda over 3 years equals approximately $35,000. Parents' business loan co-signed equals $150,000. Current balance $127,340. Parents' credit card payments equals $1,200 per month for 24 months equals $28,800. Family vacation to Hawaii equals $15,000. Miscellaneous gifts, dinners, and emergency funds equals estimated $20,000. Total, $316,140. Over $300,000. And for what? For at least someone's worth baking for? I was still staring at the spreadsheet when Jake and the guys arrived. They took one look at my face and knew not to ask if I was okay. Instead, They set up the food and drinks, and turned on the basketball game, creating a buffer of normalcy. 2 beers in, I finally told them everything. Not just the birthday party incident, but all of it. The years of emotional neglect. The financial support my family didn't know about or appreciate. The constant hope that someday, somehow, they'd see me. You know what the worst part is? I said, my voice rough from talking and emotion. I keep thinking it's my fault. Like if I were somehow better, smarter, more successful, more whatever, they'd love me the way they love her. That's not how love works, Tyler said quietly. He was our company's head of HR, a guy who understood people better than anyone I knew. You don't earn it by being perfect. It's supposed to be unconditional. Well, clearly there are conditions in your family, Chris added, and you've never met them because the goalposts keep moving. Jake had been unusually quiet. Now he looked at me directly and asked, "What are you going to do about it?" "What can I do? They're my family." "Are they, though?" He gestured around the apartment. "These guys have been more family to you than the Fletchers ever were. And you're bankrolling people who actively hurt you." "I've thought about cutting them off financially," I admitted, "but it seems so vindictive." "It's not vindictive, it's healthy," Tyler countered. "It's establishing boundaries with people who don't respect you." "And how would it even work? Just stop paying Miranda's rent without warning? Let my parents default on their loan?" Chris, our legal counsel, spoke up. "For the rent, you could pay it off entirely. Give the landlord enough to cover the rest of her lease. That way she's not suddenly homeless, but she knows it came from you, not some fictional grant program. And for your parents," Jake added, "you give them notice. 30 days to refinance the loan without you. Cancel the credit cards after the next payment cycle." They made it sound so simple, so reasonable. But the thought of actually doing it made my stomach clench. "What if they never speak to me again?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "Based on how they treat you," Jake said gently, "would that really be worse than what you have now?" After they left, I sat alone in the quiet apartment, their words echoing in my head. My therapist had been suggesting something similar for years, establishing boundaries, requiring respect, stopping the enabling behavior. I'd always resisted, afraid of losing the little connection I had with my family. But today had shown me the truth. I didn't really have a connection. I had a transaction. I provided money, and they occasionally tolerated my existence. I opened my laptop again and stared at the financial spreadsheet. Then I opened a new browser tab and searched for information about paying off someone else's lease. Next, I drafted an email to my family's landlord company, then another to my lawyer. The plan formed with surprising clarity. I'd pay off the remainder of Miranda's lease 1 year at $2,500 per month, so $30,000. The payment would go directly to Beacon Hill Properties, but with clear instructions that Miranda be informed of the source. No more fictional arts grant. I'd email my lawyer about removing myself from my parents' business loan, setting up a meeting to discuss options. I'd cancel the joint credit card after the next payment cycle. I'd document all the financial support I'd provided over the years, just in case there were any legal repercussions. With a glass of whiskey in hand for courage, I looked once more at the family photo on my desk. Then I began typing the emails that would change everything. The whiskey burned pleasantly as I finalized my plan. My fingers moved over the keyboard with surprising steadiness, given the magnitude of what I was about to do. First, the email to Beacon Hill Properties. To whom it may concern. I'm writing regarding apartment 403 at the Artisan Building, currently leased to Miranda Fletcher. For the past 3 years, I have been making the monthly rent payments of $2,500 through an automatic transfer from my account, details below. I wish to modify this arrangement by paying the remainder of her current lease in full. My understanding is that her lease runs through next April, which amounts to $30,000 for 12 remaining months. I've attached verification of funds and am prepared to make this transfer immediately. However, I have one specific condition. Miss Fletcher must be informed that these payments have come from me, Amos Fletcher, her brother, for the past 3 years and for this final payment. Until now, she has believed the rent was covered by an arts grant program. Please confirm receipt of this email, and let me know how to proceed with the lump sum payment. Sincerely, Amos Fletcher, CEO, Secure Stack Solutions. I read it 3 times, making sure the language was clear and professional. Then I hit send. Next came the email to David Harrington, my lawyer. David, I need to discuss removing myself from a business loan I co-signed for my parents, Robert and Catherine Fletcher, approximately 2 years ago. The original amount was $150,000, and the current balance is roughly $127,340. I also need advice on properly documenting financial gifts I've provided to family members over the past several years, totaling over $300,000. Could we schedule a meeting this week to discuss the legal implications and best path forward? Regards, Amos. That email felt even more momentous. Once David got involved, there would be no easy way to backtrack. I took another sip of whiskey, then sent it. With the 2 critical emails dispatched, I moved on to the practical financial steps. I logged into my bank account and canceled all automatic payments to my family's accounts, effective after the next payment cycle. I removed my parents as authorized users on my American Express Black Card. I documented every transaction, every gift, every loan, in a detailed spreadsheet, complete with dates and amounts. The process took hours. By the time I finished, it was after midnight, officially no longer my birthday. The apartment was dark except for the glow of my laptop screen. The whiskey bottle had significantly less liquid than when I started. I felt strange. Lighter somehow, but also hollowed out. Like I'd removed something painful but essential. My phone showed multiple missed calls and texts from Jake, checking that I was okay. I sent him a quick message. It's done. Talk tomorrow. Then I turned off my phone completely. Whatever reaction came from my family, I didn't want to deal with it tonight. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the Boston skyline. Lights twinkled in office buildings and condominiums. Somewhere out there, my sister was probably in her artistic loft, blissfully unaware that her financial situation was about to change dramatically. My parents were likely in their renovated bedroom, sleeping peacefully in the house their forgotten son had helped maintain. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I felt completely in control of my relationship with my family. They had held the emotional power for so long, keeping me tethered with the slim hope of approval. Now I had taken action, set boundaries, established consequences. Whatever happened next, it would be on new terms. I slept better that night than I had in months. No anxious dreams, no waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart pounding, just deep, restful sleep. The next morning, I woke up feeling surprisingly calm. I showered, made coffee, and checked my email. There was already a response from Beacon Hill Properties. Dear Mr. Fletcher, thank you for your email regarding apartment 403. We can certainly arrange for the remainder of the lease to be paid in full. I've attached our wire transfer information for the $30,000 payment. Regarding your condition about informing Miss Fletcher, our policy typically prevents us from discussing payment arrangements with tenants. However, given that you've been the actual source of payments all along, we can make an exception. Our property manager will contact Miss Fletcher directly once the payment is processed to inform her of the situation. Please let me know if you have any questions. Sincerely, Jonathan Wright, Financial Manager, Beacon Hill Properties. I completed the wire transfer immediately, including the apartment number and Miranda's name in the reference field. Then I sent a confirmation email to Jonathan, reiterating that Miranda needed to know who had been paying her rent. David Harrington had also responded, offering to meet that afternoon. I confirmed the appointment. Then, instead of turning my phone back on, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a day off work. I sent Jake a message from my laptop, asking him to handle things at the office, then spent the day walking around Boston, thinking about my life and the changes I was making. I walked along the Charles River, watching rowing teams glide across the water. I sat in the public garden as children played around the make-way for duckling statues. I had lunch at an outdoor cafe in Copley Square, people watching as tourists and locals hurried past. For the first time in memory, I wasn't thinking about work deadlines or family obligations. I was just existing, breathing, being present in my own life. That afternoon, I met with David in his downtown office. He listened carefully as I explained the situation, his expression professional but sympathetic. "Legally, this is straightforward," he said when I finished. "You have every right to remove yourself from their financial lives. Emotionally, I expect it will be more complicated. I'm prepared for that." He nodded. "For the business loan, we'll contact the bank about your parents' refinancing without your guarantee. They'll have 30 days to arrange new terms. If they can't qualify on their own, they might need to liquidate some assets or find another cosigner. And if they refuse, then you'll need to decide whether you're willing to let the loan default, which would affect your credit as well as theirs. But let's cross that bridge if we come to it." We spent the next hour going through documentation of all the financial support I'd provided. David advised me to keep detailed records, just in case. "Do you think they'll try to sue me or something?" I asked, the thought only now occurring to me. It's unlikely they'd have legal grounds, since these were clearly gifts, not loans with repayment terms. But family disputes can turn ugly, and documentation is your best protection. By the end of the meeting, I had a clear plan and timeline. David would contact the bank about the loan. I'd already handled Miranda's rent and canceled the automatic payments. The credit cards would be deactivated after the next billing cycle. All that remained was to wait for the inevitable fallout. That evening, I finally turned my phone back on. No calls or messages from my family, yet they probably hadn't noticed any changes. There were several texts from Jake, checking in. I replied that everything was proceeding according to plan and agreed to meet him for dinner. Over steaks at a quiet restaurant, I told him about the steps I'd taken. "How do you feel?" he asked after I'd finished. I considered the question carefully. "Free," I finally said, and terrified. But mostly free. What are you going to do with that freedom? I hadn't thought that far ahead. My entire life had revolved around work and trying to earn my family's approval. Without the latter consuming my energy, what would I do? "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe travel? Take up a hobby? Actually use the vacation days I've accumulated?" Jake grinned. "Start with your birthday. Let's plan something epic for this weekend. Something you've always wanted to do but never made time for." By the end of dinner, we'd booked a weekend trip to Napa Valley, first-class flights, luxury hotel, reservations at the French Laundry, a private hot-air balloon ride over the vineyards. It was extravagant, indulgent, and exactly what I deserved after 28 years of settling for crumbs of attention. That night, I slept peacefully again. Whatever storm was coming, I'd face it knowing I had made the right decision. The first few days after sending the emails passed in surprising tranquility. I threw myself into work with renewed focus, channeling my emotional energy into finalizing the Deutsche Bank contract. Colleagues commented on my upbeat mood, unaware of the family drama simmering beneath the surface. By day 3, I started checking my phone more frequently, expecting some reaction from my family. Nothing. My email remained free of angry messages. My voicemail collected no outraged tirades. It was as if I dropped a boulder into a pond, and no ripples had formed. Jake noticed my growing confusion. "Maybe they haven't realized yet," he suggested over lunch. "The credit cards are still working, right? And your parents probably haven't been contacted about the loan. But what about Miranda's rent? The property manager was supposed to tell her it came from me." He shrugged. "Maybe they're taking their time. Or maybe she knows and doesn't want to acknowledge it. That possibility hadn't occurred to me, that they might know and simply be ignoring the situation. It felt worse somehow than anger would have been. On day 4, the first sign of awareness came in the form of a missed call from my father. No voicemail. I didn't call back. Day 5 brought 2 texts from my mother, neither mentioning finances. Are you coming to Sunday dinner this week? And an hour later, Miranda has news about her gallery showing. I didn't respond to either message. On day 6, Miranda finally texted, "Hey, got a weird call from my building manager about the rent. Call me when you can." I saved the message, but didn't reply. My weekend trip to Napa with Jake and our friends was scheduled for days 7 through 9. Before leaving, I met with Dr. Simmons for an emergency therapy session. "You've taken a significant step," he said after I explained what I'd done. "How are you feeling about it?" "Conflicted," I admitted. "Part of me feels powerful and in control for the first time. Another part feels guilty, like I'm being petty or cruel. Those feelings are normal. You're breaking a long-established pattern, and that's uncomfortable even when the pattern was harmful. What if they never forgive me?" He looked at me steadily. "Amos, what would constitute forgiveness in this situation? Them acknowledging how they've hurt you? Or you continuing to financially support their lifestyle without reciprocal care or respect?" I didn't have an answer. "Something to think about while you're in Napa," he said. "And try to enjoy your trip. Self-care isn't selfish." Napa was transformative. For 3 days, I didn't check work emails or family messages. I savored extraordinary meals, tasted exceptional wines, soared above picturesque vineyards in a hot air balloon as the sun rose over the mountains. I laughed with friends who genuinely enjoyed my company. I slept in a ridiculously comfortable hotel bed and didn't think about quarterly projections or family expectations. On the flight home, Jake nudged my arm. "Look at you, all relaxed and human-looking." I smiled. "It's been a good weekend. This is what normal people do, you know. They take vacations, they have fun, they don't work themselves to death, trying to impress people who don't appreciate them." "I'm learning," I said. The bubble of peace popped as soon as we landed in Boston. My phone, reconnecting to service, buzzed with notifications. Multiple missed calls from both parents. Texts from Miranda. A voicemail from my father that just said, "Call us." Immediately. I played the messages for Jake as we waited for our luggage. "Sounds like the property manager finally talked to Miranda," he said. "Or the credit card got declined. Either way, the reckoning has begun. You ready?" I took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. Days 10 through 12 were preparation for the inevitable confrontation. I met with David Harrington again, who confirmed the bank had contacted my parents about refinancing the business loan without my guarantee. I spoke with Dr. Simmons about strategies for maintaining boundaries when emotionally challenged. I even role-played potential conversations with Jake, who enthusiastically played the part of my outraged mother. "But we're your family," he wailed in a falsetto that sounded nothing like Catherine Fletcher but made me laugh nonetheless. "And I'm your son," I countered, following the script Dr. Simmons had suggested. "A son you've consistently devalued and taken for granted." On day 11, the messages from my family took on a desperate edge. From Mom, "Amos, we need to talk about some financial confusion. Please call as soon as possible." From Dad, "The bank says you're removing yourself from the loan." "This is serious, son." From Miranda, "What the hell is going on? The landlord says, you've been paying my rent for 3 years? Call me." I saved them all but still didn't respond. Dr. Simmons had advised waiting until I felt emotionally prepared for the conversation, rather than being ambushed while still processing my own feelings. On the evening of day 12, I was working late at the office when my phone lit up with a text from Miranda. "What the fuck did you do?" I knew then that the full revelation had finally hit. The landlord must have informed her that not only had I been paying her rent for years, but I'd also paid off the remainder of her lease in full. I turned off my phone, finished the proposal I was working on, and drove home, mentally preparing for whatever would come next. In my apartment, I went through my evening routine with deliberate calmness. I changed into comfortable clothes. I made a simple dinner. I poured a glass of wine. I turned my phone back on and placed it on the coffee table. It rang almost immediately. "Miranda." I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello, Miranda." And so it began. "Is it true?" Miranda demanded without preamble. "Have you been paying my rent for 3 years?" "Yes," I said simply. "Why?" Her voice contained a mix of confusion, suspicion, and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Because you're my sister, and you needed help." "But why didn't you tell me it was you? Why make up some bullshit about an arts grant?" I sighed. "Would you have accepted it if you knew it came from me?" Silence on the line. "That's what I thought," I continued. "And now your landlord says the rent is canceled because—" "What? You paid the whole year in advance?" "Yes. Why would you do that?" The question hung between us. How could I explain the accumulation of slights, the final straw of the birthday party, the decision to reclaim my dignity? "I think we should talk about this in person," I said finally. "All of us." 2 hours later, I pulled into the driveway of my parents' colonial-style home in Lexington. Miranda's hybrid was already parked at the curb. My father's Audi and mother's Volvo sat in their usual spots. The house looked exactly as it always had. Well-maintained exterior, carefully landscaped yard, warm lights glowing from within. A picture-perfect family home that had never felt like mine. I sat in my car for a full minute, gathering my strength. Then I walked up the familiar path to the front door and rang the bell instead of using my key. This wasn't a casual visit. This was a reckoning. My mother opened the door, her expression a calculated blend of concern and confusion. "Amos, what's going on? We've been trying to reach you for days." I stepped past her into the foyer. "Is everyone here?" "In the living room." "We're all very confused about—" "Good," I interrupted. "Let's talk." The living room was exactly as I remembered from childhood. Comfortable furniture, tasteful decorations, family photos, in which Miranda featured prominently. My father sat in his recliner, looking grim. Miranda perched on the edge of the sofa, her expression unreadable. I remained standing. "I assume you have questions about the financial changes." My father leaned forward. "The bank says you're removing yourself as guarantor on my business loan. They're talking about calling in the full amount if I can't refinance. And the credit cards aren't working," my mother added. I was trying to pay for groceries and was humiliated at the checkout. Miranda just stared at me, silent. "Yes," I said. "I've decided to make some changes in how I support this family financially." "Support?" My father's eyebrows shot up. "What are you talking about? We don't need your support." I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped. "Really? The business loan I co-signed? The credit cards I pay for? Miranda's rent for the past 3 years? The Hawaii vacation? None of that counts as support?" My mother's face paled. "You're exaggerating. We've had some help from you occasionally, but $316,140, I said flatly. "That's how much occasional help I've provided in the last 3 years." A heavy silence fell over the room. "Why are you doing this now?" my father finally asked. "If you've been so unhappy about helping your family, why wait until now to throw a tantrum?" "A tantrum?" The calm I'd maintained began to crack. "Is that what you think this is? What else would you call it? Cutting us off without warning because—" "What? You're having some kind of quarter-life crisis?" I looked at each of them in turn. My father's defensive anger, my mother's calculated concern, Miranda's stunned silence. "When was my birthday?" I asked quietly. My mother blinked. "What? My birthday? When was it?" "This is ridiculous," my father muttered. "It was 12 days ago," I said. "The same day you threw a surprise party for Miranda." A flash of recognition crossed my mother's face, quickly suppressed. "The party was for Miranda's gallery acceptance," she said. "It had nothing to do with your birthday." "So you admit you knew it was my birthday and chose to celebrate her instead?" "We were going to do something for you another time," my father interjected. "Miranda's news was time-sensitive. And in 28 years, you've never found a time-sensitive reason to celebrate me," I said. "No party when I got into MIT. No celebration when I started my company. Nothing when we signed our first $1 million contract." "That's not fair," my mother protested. We've always been proud of you. Proud enough to post, "At least someone's worth baking for" on Facebook. She had the grace to look embarrassed. That was a joke. "No," I said. "A joke is funny. That was cruel. Deliberately, publicly cruel. So this is revenge?" My father stood up, his face reddening. "You're punishing us financially because your mother made a thoughtless comment online? This isn't revenge. It's consequences. It's me finally recognizing that I've been financing my own emotional abuse for years." "Abuse?" he sputtered. "You're living in a fantasy world. We gave you everything growing up. Accept acknowledgement. Accept celebration. Accept love. Oh, here we go with the millennial victim complex," he scoffed. "We put food on the table, clothes on your back, a roof over your head. But that's not enough for your generation, is it? You need constant praise and validation." "Not constant," I said, my voice steady despite the emotions roiling inside me. "Just occasional would have been nice. Maybe on my birthday." "If this is really about your birthday," my mother said, her tone conciliatory, "we can have a belated celebration. I'll bake your favorite cake." "You don't even know what my favorite cake is." She opened her mouth, closed it again. "It's German chocolate," Miranda said suddenly. We all turned to look at her. She'd been so quiet I'd almost forgotten she was there, with extra coconut in the frosting. "He always requested it growing up, but you always made red velvet instead because that's what I liked." My mother's face flushed. "Well, I can't be expected to remember every little preference." "You remember all of mine," Miranda pointed out. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. "This isn't just about a cake," I said finally. "It's about a lifetime of being treated like I don't matter. And I've decided I'm not going to fund that treatment anymore." "So you're just cutting us off?" My father's voice rose. "After everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me?" I asked, genuinely curious. "We raised you. We supported your education." "My scholarship supported my education. And raising your child is the bare minimum of parenting, not some extraordinary favor." "And what about family loyalty?" my mother demanded. "You'd let your father's business fail? Let your sister lose her apartment?" "Miranda's apartment is paid through next April. I took care of that. As for the business loan, you have 30 days to refinance. If the business is as successful as Dad always claims, that shouldn't be a problem." My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "You ungrateful little—" "That's enough, Dad." Miranda stood up. "He's right." Three heads swiveled to stare at her. "What?" my mother asked. "Amos is right. We've treated him terribly." She turned to face me. "I had no idea you were paying my rent. No idea you were handling all these expenses. And I definitely didn't know they threw that party on your birthday." "Miranda, don't be dramatic," my father said. "This isn't about you." "But it is," she insisted. "It's about how we've all treated Amos, and it's been awful." She looked at me, her eyes shining with tears. "I'm so sorry. I hadn't expected this. Anger, defensiveness, manipulation, those I was prepared for. Genuine remorse, especially from Miranda, had never entered my calculations." "Can we talk?" she asked. "Just the two of us?" I nodded, and we stepped out onto the back porch, leaving our parents in stunned silence. The night air was cool against my skin. Miranda hugged herself against the chill, looking smaller than I remembered. "Did you really pay my rent for 3 years?" she asked. "Yes, and all those arts grants and emergency funds. All me." She shook her head. "I don't understand. I've been horrible to you. Competitive, dismissive. Why would you help me?" "Because you're my sister," I said simply. "And despite everything, I love you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I don't deserve that love." "Maybe not. But that's not how love is supposed to work, is it?" She was quiet for a long moment. "The gallery showing is real," she said finally. "But I didn't know they planned the party for your birthday. I swear." "I believe you, and I'll talk to them. Make them understand what they've done, what we've all done." I smiled sadly. "Good luck with that. Are you really cutting them off? Financially? Yes. Emotionally? I don't know yet. That depends on what happens next. She nodded. I understand. And I'll figure out the rent situation when the year is up. Get a cheaper place. Maybe a roommate. Or sell more art. A small smile. That would be nice. We stood in companionable silence for a few minutes. It felt like the first real conversation we'd had in years. Maybe ever. I should go, I said finally. Will you answer if I call? I want to fix this. Be a real sister. I'd like that. As I walked back through the house, my parents tried to intercept me with more arguments and justifications. I held up a hand. I've said what I needed to say. The financial changes stand. What happens with our relationship now is up to you. You can't just walk away from family, my mother protested. I'm not walking away. I'm just changing the terms of engagement. And with that, I left my childhood home, climbed into my car, and drove back to Boston, feeling simultaneously weighted down by decades of accumulated pain and lighter for having finally addressed it. 1 year later, on my 29th birthday, I woke to the gentle ping of an incoming text message. I reached for my phone, bleary-eyed in the early morning light filtering through my bedroom windows. The message was from Miranda. Happy birthday, big brother. Hope 29 treats you better than 28. Love you. P.S. Check your building's front desk when you have a chance. I smiled and typed back a quick thanks. Then I showered, dressed, and headed downstairs. At the front desk, a package waited for me, a small, carefully wrapped box with a card attached. Inside was a custom-made leather portfolio, embossed with my initials and company logo. The card read, "For the brother who helped me find my way. This is for your next chapter. Love, Miranda." It wasn't an extravagant gift, but it was thoughtful, personal, chosen with care by someone who'd taken the time to know me. As I headed to the office, another text arrived, this one from my mother. Happy birthday, Amos. Hope you have a wonderful day. Simple. No elaborate declarations or promises. Just an acknowledgement, which was more than I'd received in previous years. My father didn't text or call, but I hadn't expected him to. The past year had transformed our family dynamic, but some changes would take more time than others. The 12 months following my financial separation had been challenging but clarifying. After the confrontation at my parents' house, a period of strained silence followed. My father refinanced his business loan without my guarantee, though he had to put up their house as collateral. The business survived, and so did his pride, eventually. My mother alternated between tearful pleas and icy distance before settling into a cautious, more respectful relationship. We spoke monthly now, brief conversations about neutral topics. She no longer asked for money or made cutting remarks disguised as humor. Progress, however small. Miranda had undergone the most dramatic transformation. After the initial shock wore off, she'd approached our new relationship with determination and humility. She found a roommate to share expenses when the prepaid lease ended. She took a part-time job at an art supply store to supplement her income from occasional sales. She called regularly, listened more than she spoke, and never once asked for financial help. 3 months ago, she'd sold a series of paintings to a legitimate gallery for enough money to clear her outstanding debts. She'd called me immediately, not to brag, but to thank me for giving her the push toward self-sufficiency. I don't think I ever would have figured it out if you hadn't stopped enabling me, she admitted. My personal life had blossomed in the space created by stepping back from family drama. I'd started dating Eliza, a marine biologist I met during a coastal cleanup event Jake had dragged me to. She was brilliant, kind, and refreshingly direct about her needs and expectations. After years of trying to read the invisible rule book of my family's affection, her transparency felt like stepping into sunlight after a lifetime in shadow. SecureStack Solutions had expanded internationally, with new offices in London and Singapore. The work still challenged and fulfilled me, but it no longer consumed every waking moment. I'd learned to delegate, to trust my team, to take weekends off without guilt. I'd maintained my therapy sessions with Dr. Simmons, working through layers of ingrained patterns and false beliefs. Some days were harder than others. I still caught myself occasionally seeking approval in unhealthy ways, or bracing for rejection where none existed. But I recognized those moments now, understood their origins, and could redirect my thoughts and actions. On this birthday morning, I arrived at the office to find my assistant had arranged a small celebration, nothing elaborate, just coffee and pastries in the conference room with my immediate team. Jake had ordered a German chocolate cake with extra coconut in the frosting. Everyone signed a card. No one made a big fuss, but everyone acknowledged the day. It was perfect. That evening, I hosted dinner at my apartment, Jake and his wife Eliza, and to everyone's surprise, Miranda. She arrived with a bottle of wine and an easy smile, chatting comfortably with my friends. The Miranda of a year ago would have dominated the conversation with tales of her artistic struggles. This version listened more than she spoke, asked questions about others' lives, laughed genuinely at Jake's terrible jokes. After dinner, as we sat around the living room with drinks, Miranda raised her glass. "To my brother," she said, "who had the courage to change an unhealthy dynamic instead of just complaining about it, who loved his family enough to stop enabling their worst behavior, who taught me that real love sometimes means difficult truths." Jake raised his glass. "To Amos, who finally realized his worth isn't determined by people who couldn't see his value." Eliza smiled at me. "To the man who's learning that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for healthy relationships." I felt a lump form in my throat as I raised my own glass. To chosen family, to growth, and to birthdays that actually get celebrated. Later, after everyone had left, I stood at my windows looking out at the city lights. I thought about the journey of the past year, the pain, the growth, the unexpected healing. I thought about my parents, still learning how to have a relationship with me that wasn't based on financial dependence. I thought about Miranda, finding her way toward authentic connection and self-sufficiency. The journey wasn't over. Some wounds were still tender, some patterns still tempting to fall back into, but I had learned some crucial truths. That my worth wasn't tied to my family's recognition. That sometimes loving someone means stopping behaviors that hurt both of you. That forgiveness doesn't require forgetting or continuing to accept mistreatment. Most importantly, I'd learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfishness, it's self-preservation. That setting boundaries isn't punishment, it's protection. And that sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do for a relationship is to fundamentally change its terms. I thought back to that birthday a year ago, to the Facebook photos that had finally pushed me to action. The caption, "The only one who deserves celebrating." My comment, "Nice cake." My mother's reply, "At least someone's worth baking for." My final words, "Enjoy it, while you can." At the time, those words had felt like a threat, a promise of retaliation. Now I understood they had been a prediction, because the comfortable dynamic they had enjoyed taking my support while giving nothing in return couldn't last forever. No relationship so unbalanced ever does. In the kitchen, a single cupcake remained from the celebration German chocolate with extra coconut. I put a single candle in it, lit it, and made a wish not for what others would give me, but for what I would continue to build for myself. A life of authentic connections, healthy boundaries, and the courage to protect my own worth. I blew out the candle and smiled. The story of my family wasn't over, but I had finally become the author of my own life. What about you? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with people you love? Comment below and share your experience. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of growth and healing. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply value yourself enough to say no more. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to write your own.